happened in 10 years of ministry, and I think it's important to really look at that and evaluate that and spend some time rejoicing in that. Sam, come help me. This is kind of like a homily at Mass. So clearly, at All Saints, we have a purpose. God put us here in Dearborn County for a reason. He created our parish. We're forming the saints that God has called us to be by providing faithful teaching on their worship and pastoral service, our faith actions, nourish engaged Catholics, inspire and engage Catholics, and invite all to Christ Church. We really think about like what we do in youth ministry. Like this is our goal: to faithfully teach the true faith, to teach our young people to be engaged, and to actively live out the sacramental life of the church, whether it be confession, whether it be adoration, whether it be Holy Mass, whether it be confirmation, God willing, one day holy marriage and matrimony, to be compassionate servants, and then to inspire, invite, and to nourish. So what's really powerful, I'm gonna use, you can kind of shift over here. So if we think about what has happened and what we have been doing at All Saints over the past 10 years, it really is like somewhat overwhelming when you think of the amount of young people. We have the largest group that goes to NCYC in the diocese. We have the largest group that goes to World Youth Day every year. The Intense Youth Conference, which didn't exist, that now feeds 300 some young people every summer. Our annual mission trips, March for Life, which some of these things are things that like, because of COVID, but remember like it killed some things. But last year we kind of revamped. We're now going to the Indianapolis March for Life just because of a shift from the diocesan perspective. Confirmation retreats, promoting Bishop Brute Days, Kings Island, junior high net retreats, our annual Grace retreat, which this year had over 100 young girls at it. The fact that I do senior interviews with all of our graduating seniors every single year. We have in our office, hanging on the wall, where like we eat kitchen, in our kitchen, where we eat lunch, we have pictures of all of these like really large events, dating back to the glory days of 2015. You can see like these are in chronological order of kind of how our groups have just continued to grow, from our earliest mission trips to even persevering in mission trips in the midst of COVID, to our experiences that we've had when it comes to intense over the years. Oh, that was upside down. I'm upside down. The experiences that we've had at World Youth Day. Thank you. This is World Youth Day in Panama where people couldn't go because it was in January. But clearly, like, I think we can clearly say that when it comes to like large group events, like All Saints has figured out a way to say, hey, we can get kids there. We know how to do it. We know how to make it. And like, so that's a reason to thank God, right? Like seriously, like praise the Lord, like for those experiences. We also are blessed with a lot of events that we do kind of like on a monthly basis. So Saturday Night Live, Altar Boys events, Beyond, which is our girls group. Fun Fridays, Sons of Vianney, which is a diocesan group, but feeds really only the young people at our parish. Weekly events of confirmation classes, Ultimate, which is not what it was, but at one point it was a huge ordeal. That's about leadership and choices that some people make. But small groups, Breakfast Club, Wild and Wacky Wednesday nights in the summer. So sports, ministry, basketball and volleyball every single year through CYO open gyms that we have on a regular basis, compassionate service of caroling, serving our festivals, mission trips, food pantries, distribution, 40 Days for Life, and our young people participating in that. Like when you look at this from a comprehensive sense, it's like, wow. Like, it's a lot. It's also a little bit sometimes like overwhelming. Like, we'll get to that aspect as well, right? So I think if we just said like, thanks be to God. So it's some of our own self-reflection of when we think about the fruit that has been born in 10 years, then we can clearly say like our young people, because of the large events particularly, they've experienced the universal church. Like for a lot of us that grew up in a small town, and our experience in the church is the 150 or 300 people you see on a Sunday Mass. Like that's no longer the experience. It doesn't have to be the experience. For some of our young people, that still is the experience, but it doesn't have to be the experience anymore. Like you can literally go to NCYC, you can go to Intense, you can go to World Youth Day, and you can celebrate Mass with 25,000 people in Indianapolis or 1.8 million people in some European country, right? So like we've brought our young people to the universal church, but because of that, we've also brought that back to our people. Like our people are our adults, aunts, uncles, grandparents that don't go. They're also then exposed to that by these young people coming back and telling their stories and being witnesses. We have young people that are daily Mass. We have young people that are like regularly going to confession because of youth ministry. We have young people like, some of you might know Bob Gaynor. He is tried and true St. John the Baptist. Like, he's a Gaynor from, his brother's a priest. And I was just visiting someone who's sick and shut in. Bob brings them communion often, just visits them as well. And as I was getting ready to leave, this elderly man who I was visiting said that Bob was over the other day, and he looked at his friend, and he said, the most beautiful thing is that I go to Mass now and I look around my church. Our church is full, and it's full of young people. And good evening. No one is watching you. But there is something awesome about that there are young people, that we see young people, we celebrate young people, particularly at Mass. Youth involvement in liturgy, generosity of adults volunteering to our young people. So this is not just the fact that like our young people are there, but we have the amount of adults that make all of it happen, right? Like chaperones and volunteers and those who give to make it possible for our young people. Holy friendships, of like the friendships that you see that have happened because of these opportunities and graces that they've received. Our teens are very pro-life across the board. The generosity of our parishioners who financially just pour money into our young people. You ask for it and they will just be like, oh, okay. Who can't go to that event because I will pay for them to go. I will make it happen no matter what the situation is. Youth giving their lives in ministry. So, I mean, whether it be Samantha Hensley or Lucy Hirth or Lizzie, who have been supporting the ministry and making it what it is, but also the young people who, I mean, Alex Hornback right now is serving as a missionary on a college campus. And he will give total credit to his experiences here at All Saints. We've had 4 men enter the seminary. Andrew Oleg, I'm going to like Chris Schneider, Randy Schneider, and Luke Hornback. 4 men entered the seminary from our parish. And like, thanks be to God, right? So we have one lined up for next year. Praise the Lord for that as well. He'll remain anonymous, however. I think he's been telling everybody, so whatever. We're blessed with homeschoolers at our parish, and the fact, and I mean this, like I've been involved with like homeschooling, like my entire priesthood. But like the reality is that there are some homeschool communities that do not engage in youth ministry because they find it to be dangerous, and they don't want to be involved with things happening in the parish. But that's not the case with us. Families who love youth ministry, openness to service projects. Our young people show up, a wide variety of opportunities, so many options for us to have youth ministry events when it comes to the fact that we have 21 buildings at All Saints Parish, and now you're in the 22nd. Different age groups and genders engaged when you think about just it's crazy and it is overwhelming when you look at all of this. But when you, like, if there's a young person in our parish that isn't engaged, we always have to say, like, it's not our fault, because we are offering more than, like, it's crazy. It's crazy, right? So, when we begin to look at all of this, like, and I mean this like for real, like, I hope that like right now we're going to like, dear Lord, thank you. Like, thank you. Right? And we got to where we're at by a lot of hard work. We got to a lot of where we're at by just saying yes all the time, just being like, yes, Lord, if you want us to do this, we'll do it. And if someone complained about something, we would just add something more to it to try to like get people to stop complaining and to say that we were doing something more to try to solve the problem. And this is where we're at, right? So praise the Lord for that. Which then leads us to really kind of looking at our youth ministry program like from a broader perspective of like, for those of you that have ever heard of like the SWOT analysis, but looking at your strengths, looking at weaknesses, looking at opportunities for growth, and then looking at threats that there are, SWOT. So if we, actually, thanks God, we need to also then like acknowledge the fact that, you know, there's all these great things, but there's also then like challenges, right? So for those of you who have ever looked at anything like our youth ministry page, or if you look at our bulletin, or if you sometimes like listen to announcements, or if you follow our weekly emails, if you're a parent of a young person, there just comes a point where you're just like, this is overwhelming, I don't know what to do, so I'm just going to shut down. I'm going to choose nothing, because if I choose one thing, I don't know what I'm choosing, and there's no way that I can get my kid to all of these things in 1 week. And so I don't even know, I can't even meet all the expectations, and so it's easier to just like to disengage because there's too much going on. So that sometimes can be which then causes overwhelming. With Samantha Hensley, Lucy and Lizzie, we've never really had like a core team. It's always just been like, hey, Father Meyer has an idea, let's implement it, let's make it happen. If we need to get a team, we can make a team happen, and we'll make that happen as well. Like, let's go, like, let's just make it happen. And so we do that, and we've been doing that for 10 years. So there really isn't like a core team, or there's no adult team. When new families join our parish, once again, I think like it becomes like the overwhelming or the over-programmed model sometimes. Like new families don't sometimes get initiated into what's taking place. Sometimes it is the exact opposite. Like new families are so excited because they came from nothing and now there is something. So that's a both and. I don't know what that means. I don't know what bus versus effective. I actually typed that. I don't even know what that means. But it meant something really important to me when I wrote it down. So anyways, busy versus effective. That's what it is. Busy versus effective. I'll stop. Okay. Not bringing in new families. Public, private, and homeschool. So clearly we have different communities, and like, how do they all merge together? And sometimes we all play nice together, sometimes we don't. What does that look like? And how do we continue to like have that be a part of who we are? Our kids that go to OA, we have kids that go to St. X, we have kids that at Mercy McCullough, we have kids at Seton. Like, how does that all work together in a world when, that's hard. Constant maintenance mode, so we're constantly just maintaining programs instead of actually really kind of assessing what is really best. I am less engaged. Like when I was at All Saints, I had nothing else to do.
That's not true.
And now I'm like, I just slept last night in Aurora, and I have a school. Yes, I mean, I'm no longer. I'm not as. I can't be who I used to be. Very interesting. Like when legacy. So oftentimes we invest a lot in certain kids who are leaders, and then when those kids graduate and they're gone, like things change, and that is like. So I was the director of the youth ministry for 5.5 years. Like I've read books on youth ministry. A youth minister normally lasts 16 months in a parish, and then they quit. That's national data. Because normally what happens is a youth minister gets hired, they bond with the kids that the parents give to them and say, hey, these are our leadership team. And then those kids graduate or they fizzle out of youth ministry, and then the youth minister quits as well. Because the constant rebuilding program is really, really hard. And when you think about like some of the families that like have had like lots of kids, lots of engagement, lots of investment, and then ultimately their kids ultimately graduate and they're no longer here. And that affects the program because you're constantly having to make a decision to reinvest, and it's hard. It's just a challenge. Ultimately, normal is toxic, and right now we're just trying to just deal with normal, and part of that was, I think, taking on the new parishes. Current new parishioners did not have youth ministry, so this is our current young parents. This is part of, it's not just the fact of are we reaching out to the kids, but the reality is the only way that kids come is by their parents. For those of you who are parents that are here, the only reason your kids come is because it's just the rule. It's just the rule. And everybody thinks that if you have the coolest youth ministry program, your kids are going to come, and that's really not the case. It's about committed parents who say you're going to this event, and then it's the responsibility of the people that are there to win the kids over. But the reality is that youth ministry works when parents work. And the other aspect of that is, so it's not just the fact that kids are graduating, but you're also then graduating parents who are invested. But then those newer, younger parents, they were never involved in youth ministry, which means that in their idea of what it is to be a faithful Catholic, youth ministry is not on the radar. Getting to Mass on Sunday is what's on the radar. Youth ministry is not. If you don't have a youth ministry culture mindset, then it's really, really hard to just continually when school and sports and volleyball and soccer and football are literally demanding your time, the optionals are really hard. And then families get overwhelmed and they're like, I can't do all this, and then I'm out. So you're just making the decision to shut down. So clearly, we have weaknesses. They've always been there. This is nothing new. It's not oh my gosh, we're all gonna die. We've been dealing with these since 2014 when I arrived, right? In the earliest days of youth ministry when I had Seth Bittner every day. So seriously, but Ian just graduated. Yeah. But that's a perfect example of the dead-ends. When you think about some of these families that had kids in youth ministry for 10 years and were totally always at every single event, this is what happens, right? Okay, so we have great opportunities, though. We have great opportunities. Clearly, something that we're doing is working. Some of you received this in the mail this past week. Some of you haven't, which is completely fine. You'll see these in the back of the churches this upcoming weekend, I think. Right, Lucy? Yeah. Great. This is the World Youth Day Reflection booklet, and I just want to say, I started reading this past week, I just started crying. Because it's so powerful, what these young people stinking experience. And I'm just oh my gosh. Yeah, it's not the question of oh my gosh, it's so terrible, shut the whole thing down. But it's just okay, how do we continue to do this, and how do we do it better? And so opportunities. After really thinking and praying and just kind of looking at this, we believe that clearly at All Saints, we totally own big event youth ministry. We own it. That's not pride. That's just that's fact. We have the ability to take people to the large events and have powerful experiences where they encounter the Lord in adoration, in prayer, and those kids, it's fantastic. We're really, really good at that. That's a powerful thing. The opportunity that I think we have that's before us. So many of you have heard Curtis Martin, who founded Focus, and there's many other different ways of looking at it, but there's a model of ministry that's called Win, Build, Send. Win, build, send. So winning is when you take someone who doesn't really believe in Jesus or believe in the church, and you win them to Christ. They have some sort of experience where they're just wow, Jesus is real. Wow, I love Jesus. And I think we're really good at doing that. I really do. I meet with seniors every year in the senior interview, and I sometimes have to hold back tears, because one of the questions I always ask every single senior, when in your life have you felt closest to God? And I will tell you that almost every single senior says that on their senior retreat. Sorry, not the senior retreat, part of their confirmation retreat. And it's the exact same moment every single time when they get their parent letters, but it's not the parent letters. This is always a response. After I read all those letters and then went and sat with Jesus in the Blessed Sacrament, I experienced the love of God in a way I never had before. People talk about intense, people talk about NCYC, and I'm just sitting there like, oh my gosh, this is so awesome, this is so awesome, this is so awesome, this is so awesome. Then the question is about like the daily walk, right? So like the daily follow-up that needs to go with that. So that's the build part. That's the part where we have to do better at how do we help that individual just daily walk with the Lord. And that's where in a lot of these organizations they focus on small groups, like how do I individually invest in this person so they're not just a number in a confirmation class, in a large group event, but that someone personally is invested in me and believes in me. It's just like when you go to a big college and you're sitting in a huge auditorium, or you're during COVID and you're on class online and there's no one there and you really don't know if anybody's listening to you, and if you miss class for 5 weeks in a row, no one knows. And I think that's, in a certain sense, how some of our young people end up experiencing the church. Is I have this experience, I know that God is real, but I really don't have accountability, and I don't have anybody who's actually going to actually like love me in the midst of it and carry me through on this journey. I think the reality is like that's harder, that's more work, and it's not something that Lucy and I can just do because like there's only 2 of us, and I now have 4 parishes. So I can't do it, right? But I think God was calling us to it, and I think actually the fact that this is the first meeting that we're having in Ars Cafe at Union House is actually awesome. Because like, what is the whole reason of having? Why are we even establishing this? Because like in parish council and just where we're at as a parish, I think that God is inviting us to a deeper sense of discipleship, which means conversations, spending time with people, and just investing in people, right? So we're looking. We've actually begun like a student leadership team to have ownership, so that there's a core team, and it's not just us in the office or us responding to emails from parents or people saying, "Hey, what about this?" and us doing that, but having young people in leadership, and then a deeper young adult investment, but also a parent, and not even parent investment, but the sage wisdom of those who young people actually look up to more than we could ever imagine. And I would say like Darlene Fox is right here, but I'm just gonna say like Darlene Fox is here. We invited Darlene for a reason. Like in early days of youth ministry, like when we started off, like Darlene came to every single event and she loved every single kid, and those kids loved her, and the respect was amazing, and Darlene had the opportunity to just like tell them the truth about their lives because she just didn't care, right? And Darlene isn't there, no, I'm serious, but Darlene isn't there to be loved and liked. Darlene's there to just say like, you're all stupid. So I mean she doesn't say that. Well, actually, she might tell you that. Some of them she would tell you that. But that is the role that like a lot of young people don't have in their lives, and they need in their lives, and they need that echo chamber of their parents who are not their parents, but are respected members of our community who are going to say the same thing. So that there's that consistent voice in their life that they want to hear, because they really do. They actually want to hear the truth. They really, really do. And when they hear it from multiple voices, it's ultimately a great grace. And then on this side as well, we have threats, which is called culture, sports, commitment and consistency. And so that leaves us to, oh my gosh, how do I do this? Why is it not switching to the next slide? I don't know what I did. Okay, here we go. There we go. We're good. Okay. Or the next day, get later. So before we actually go to particularly that, but this is just and kind of looking at a strategic plan of sorts. These are the dreams, a committed core team, small groups, discipleship and mentorship, prayer partners, accountability, helping parents and not burdening them and overwhelming them, a 5-to-1 ratio, that should be ratio, not ratio, of adults to teens. Older adults, not just young adults, sage wisdom, every teen in a small group. College visits, high school teens evangelizing their peers and bringing them to the church. Win, build, send. The send part is that once you invest in a young person, so once they've been won for Christ, once you build them up and encourage them, you can actually then send them out to actually go and be a disciple and an evangelizer. And then lastly, we are continually trying to build up more adoration and more silence. So, as this kind of slide says here, we've been winning people over with youth ministry events. We've proved we can put on large group events. We've introduced many people to Jesus. We introduced our new focus on building teams and disciples. Our teams are worth investing in. They need to be heard, loved, protected, and stretched. It's time to build relationships and get ready to send out missionaries. So this is kind of like the phases of our dreams. A core team of students, also with parents, young adults. Focus on building our students. I'm going to press play on this video. I think it's pretty stinking awesome. So let's see if I can make this happen. I'm so hip.
8 out of 10 young Catholics do not attend Mass every Sunday. Facing this staggering reality, we set out an expert in the ministry field. We started studying the work of one man who, in a few years of ministry, planted seeds that led billions into the Catholic Church. His methods were counterintuitive. While he could have reached the masses, he chose to work with a small group and empowered them to multiply. He built a universal church with 12 men, and his name is Jesus. This led us to an epiphany. We have to think smaller in order to reach more teenagers. This is Jen. She's in charge of our youth ministry program at St. Jude. She's got a couple of volunteers and a youth group that meets weekly. For a teaching, some prayer, and fellowship. While things aren't going great, Jen can't seem to get more youth involved and is concerned about the other 90% of disengaged teens in the parish. But what if we thought about this in a completely different way? In a way that no one has forgotten or slips through the cracks. Where parents and teens are empowered to invite friends who may not be involved. Where our adults are fully equipped to engage youth in a smaller, more intimate setting. This is Why Disciple. Why Disciple provides the training and resources so your adult volunteers can facilitate small discipleship groups. Adults are given the tools to take teens deeper and take ownership of their faith. It's not a program, but an apprenticeship in the Christian life. So let's start over with Jen. Her 3 adults were trained through Why Disciple's intuitive online platform. They began meeting weekly with their group of 4 to 8 youth in the parish, and some even in coffee shops and living rooms, sharing high-quality video content, having in-depth discussions, prayer, and fellowship. These 18 people share their enthusiasm about these small groups with the rest of the parish. In less than a year, there are more than double the small groups. And for Jen, she sees her teens growing and moving in ways that she had never experienced in her 5 years of ministry. Don't have a full-time youth minister at your parish? Well, Why Disciple is perfect for you as well, as every small group is crafted to be led by volunteers. It can start as small as 1 parent and 1 teen working together to form a small group from that teen's existing friend group and grow from there. When an adult engages a teen personally, they can finally share what an authentic relationship with Jesus looks like. Jesus focused on 12, formed them as disciples, and they changed the world. How will your teens change the world?
So, I want to tell the story of a man named Jan, who was born in 1900 in the suburbs of Krakow, Poland, and he was a tailor. He was an extreme introvert. In the 1930s, the stress of the situation taking place with the Nazi occupation led Jan all the more to turn to his Catholic faith. His parish priest, knowing that many of the priests were going to be executed and brought to concentration camps, spoke to Jan one day and said, "I need you to invest in the young people of our church." Jan committed to 3 things. He committed that every single day that he would meditate on the Word of God and pray the Rosary. He committed to receiving Jesus in the Holy Communion as often as possible. And he committed to learning more and more about intimate prayer. Eventually, Jan made a decision that he was going to invite young people into a group. So Jan gathered young people into a group of 15 called the Living Rosary Movement. And Jan picked out young boys in his parish to ultimately meet with him. He formed these 15 young men to then go out and form their own groups. They met once a week for an hour. They prayed the Rosary. He taught them about prayer and taught them how to go out and form their neighbors. One of the men that Jan spoke was Carl Wojtyła. In 1940, Jan started meeting with Carl. They met a few months, and eventually the Nazis overturned the city, and they as Catholics had to go into hiding. Carl took his group into hiding, which he had taught to do by Jan. Teaching his friends about St. John of the Cross, St. Teresa of Avila, the daily rosary, and intimate prayer when they could no longer go to Mass. Of course, as you know, Carl Wojtyła would ultimately become Pope John Paul II, who would bring the gospel to all nations. The work of Jan changed not just the life of St. John Paul II, who ultimately would go forth and change the whole entire world, but the investment of Jan into Carl Wojtyła brought ultimately hundreds of men into the priesthood and into faithfully committed marriages. Jan's commitment to ultimately invest himself into just a few people ultimately continued to build and grow and change the world. Jan is a great reminder, I think, to every single one of us about the ability that every single one of us has, you and me, to care about, invest, and to build up young people. And I really do believe that it is like the next chapter that God wants to invite us into. The calling forth and nurturing of young people seriously in the faith. This is not to say that we're going to stop going to NCYC, that we're going to stop having intents, that we're going to stop doing these big events where we literally cast seed all over the ground, because I think we do a great job with that, and that's things that need to continue. But I think there needs to be a refocus on finding young people, investing highly into them, and turning them around to then go out and to be salt and leaven and light into our world, and to build them up to have the confidence in their faith, and particularly in the interior life. So that's the dream I think that the good Lord is inviting us to in these next 10 years, and we want you to be a part of it. We want you to heavily pray for it, to number one, pray about this. Hopefully your heart will turn to gratitude for what God has been doing. Pray to the Holy Spirit that God will continue to enlighten our minds and hearts about what we're supposed to be doing. Lucy just passed out some beautiful sheets, which are kind of like commitment cards of sorts.
8 out of 10 young Catholics do not...
How do I change the screen? About the card, but there's not. So what we'd like you to do is just to fill this card out. We would love to, number one, form an adult core team. You do not need to be a parent. You can be a young adult. You can be someone whose kids are out of the house. But someone who just says, I believe in young people, I believe in the gospel, and I want just to make sure that that is a solid foundation here. If you're a young adult and you're like, you want to know, I would love to invest in young people, we would love that to be the case. If you're a parent and you're like, you want to know what, I totally support this, but maybe now isn't the right time, but I would love to support this with prayer or behind the scenes. I would be I'll be your go-to person when it comes to food, or I might not want to lead a small group, but maybe I would totally love to be the individual who, because our policies as a church, which are different than some other churches, is that we're never alone with children. So when we talk about having a small group, we're not going to be alone with children, because that's not what we do as a Catholic Church. So, but I'm willing to say hey, if there's a small group and the two adults that are normally there can't be there, I would be willing to fill in or help out. Or I just believe at this season in my life, I just want to be like an intercessor and pray for young people. And if small group leaders want to send me prayer intentions for people in their group that need to be prayed for, like I would love to be that person who goes to the Adoration Chapel and just prays at the storm for the adults and for the small group leaders that are trying to bring about this revolution. Lucy has a whole bunch of things down here that we would love to have do. As many of you know who have been to our youth events and we've been just running off a model that is really not sustainable in the long run, although we've been doing it for 10 years. But it's really not sustainable in what we want to be doing for the greater glory of God. So we would love for you to fill this out. I'm totally open to taking questions, comments. Lucy.
Oh, Father, I just want to say a couple things. So we met with a group of young adults. We met with a group of youth this past Monday to kind of talk to them about what they like about youth ministry, what they are wanting to look forward to, and they're really excited for these like discipleship groups and these small groups. And we asked them like, what do you think would be awesome? Is what's gonna happen is if one person might be like, Lucy, I really want to help, but like I just have never led a small group. Have no fear. First, you'll be paired with like another young adult or a parent or a sage wise person, and we will go through like that training and stuff. But you guys will be like, two of you will be paired with like two student leaders who like will also be kind of more engaged and know how to like do that conversation in those small groups. But like those two kids will be like searching for their friends and inviting their friends, and then we'll go through like a couple weeks of like a study, and so then you go through then you go out and it's like that whole like model that Why Disciple showed. It's like you're gonna go and with like friends, but also we're gonna be looking for like some small groups to just be available for those that don't have that reach out. I don't know if that makes sense or not, but like don't feel that like you're not capable because you've never done something.
We'll coach you up.
Yeah.
Questions people have, comments.
Positive same sex, so like boys groups, girls groups.
Which means the boys groups are going to be really talkative. Which is why their group really probably should just pray the rosary. So that there's actually some sort of verbalization, and then they can just do push-ups. And then, I'm dead serious, like that actually would be a great, if a boys group did that, it would be awesome. And then they could fart. It would be awesome. I'm just saying, it's not like then they would want to come back. Am I right, Sam?
Totally.
Luke?
Nah.
No.
That's not cool.
Luke's like, I don't want to do the push-ups. Oh, fart.
So one of the questions I've been asked is like, what does a commitment look like? And obviously, like the small group thing, that would be, we want you 100% committed in that because those kids will be reliant on you, especially like since you need 2 adults at each one, or to just be able to communicate with those like backup like support team. But we also would be wanting a percentage of, we have like SNL or whatever that will look like in the future. I don't know exactly yet. We would want you guys to kind of like make an appearance to those or Fun Friday, just because like we're talking about, I don't know if you noticed, but like it said like what's his name, and when they were like saying kids' names, and at like SNLs, at one point there was 40 kids and like me, and for me to go up and say everybody's name and welcome them and make them feel known is really hard. And so it talks about like we were running a 5-to-1 ratio, and if we had that many adults at an event, each one of those kids can be welcomed multiple times, and like how known will they feel and how welcome they would feel. So that's like our goal is this next year is to have these kids have relationships with people who are older than them, and to know that like they're not alone and like they're known and loved.
So like a look into the future, these kids that we will possibly be getting, like, do we have them for a season and then they're gone? Like,
And like our goal is that we're going to be growing, right? And so like even growing in the adult like core team, because our hope is that like your small group of 6 is going to want to break off and create 3 more groups, right? And so like that's when we need to start also like be inviting our friends who we think who are striving to be a saint. Like as a young adult parent, sage wise person, we're not asking you to be perfect, but we are asking you that you're striving for sainthood and that you're following an example that kids would want to, like, if we see you post stuff on social media or if we hear things that like aren't what Christians should be doing, like we will like ask to maybe this isn't the right season for you, but like we want to be growing our young adults and our parents and our sage wise people, because our goal is so that it might be a season, it might be a school year, but it might be like you do 6-week lesson of a why disciple thing or like a focus thing or
that's
something
another
like
thing.
that.
Is it like, will we be told what they need to be learning every week type of deal?
That's
or
a
is that
whole
kinda just
small
on
group
us?
thing,
Okay,
yeah.
okay.
I'll give you guys resources and
Okay.
stuff, but like he said, guys might want to
Yeah.
just do push-ups in the rotary, and that might be the best thing for them at that time. Like that's something that I want you and your student leader to be praying about. Like, what do you think would be good for that? Like, I did a small group my first year. Taylor was in it, and we did a book, and like it had discussion questions on it, and it was so fruitful, and like a girl's gonna become captain from that, like several years later, which is awesome.
So I think like that's one of the things that like the diversity and you know your young people's hearts more than we do, and that's the thing. Like when it's one of the complaints, like at SNL, because like our kids that are faithful and their parents make them go every single time. They're like, Father, I've kind of already heard this, but we're kind of like, well, we don't know. Like we keep like number one, like we need to find a speaker every single time, but it's also just the fact of like, I've been doing this for 10 years. If you do, I put on 90 SNLs. So like you do recycle topics, but like I think what's awesome about this is more like focus, where you can actually look at this group of like 6 kids and be like, hey girls, like what, is it chastity? Is it purity? Is it confidence? Because there's a Bible study for everything, right? Like, is it apologetics? Do you feel like you're being attacked? Well then let's figure out. So I think that's the beauty of it as well, is the ability to say like, hey, let's meet your needs where they're at. But I'm just gonna use Sarah just real quick as an example. But like your sister Emma, like if I said they're going to do SNL and your mom forces Emma to come to SNL, which your mom probably would, Emma's friends probably are not going to come. But Emma, I know her, has the ability to say to 6 of her friends, hey, I'm having a small group in my house, come, bring your cute clothes and your fingernail polish because we're going to do a Bible study, but then we're also going to like take cute pictures of ourselves afterwards. I'm joking because I honestly, like, that was her 16th birthday party.
That's all right.
But that's the difference, is that the ability to engage is actually more, because the kids are actually the ones inviting. It's not just us putting up a flyer and constantly putting something in the bulletin that we're having another event.
But like, if you're thinking to yourself like, Father, I don't think I can commit every single week or every other week for a small group, but like I still want to be involved and still get to know kids and stuff, that's when I want you still to tell me that you would like to be involved, and we would have you more as like that support team for like the SNLs or like the Fun Fridays, still like getting to know the kids, but maybe like not on that like more intimate level in a small group, but at like a larger event. So
What age range are you thinking for these small groups?
So we're still gonna just keep youth ministry 8th through 12th grade right now. Obviously, a 12th grader is not gonna mesh very well with an 8th grader. They're totally different parts of their life. One preparing to go to college, one's preparing to go to high school. So that's when it will come to your small group. I have, like, most of our student team leaders are like juniors and freshmen. So they will probably be doing more of like that age. But there are going to be a couple of them that I'm going to ask that, like, for instance, like Emma, she's a sophomore, like, but she's on fire for her faith. And like, I would say, Emma, would you mind going lower? And like, so it's closer to her age for her rather than a senior going lower. Does that make sense? But like, I would think a small group would be within 2 years.
I would just say, I'm just going to comment on that because in the experience with, again, we homeschool, and we also have kids in public school, but in the homeschool arena, like within the classical academic model, the idea is not to have more than 3 grade levels in a certain small group. So that's totally, it just the spanning of age range and what they go through, right? So like the kids who are those 8th and 9th graders, or even the 10th maybe, depending on where they're at, like they're still taking information, but they also are kind of going to come back at you and they're going to say like, well, what do I need to do this for? What, you told me all this all these years. And then those 10th, 11th, and 12th graders can also be ready to be like, all right, yeah, you told me this, I know this is what we're supposed to do, now tell me how to do it. And so the different groups that you're talking about, like in that age group, that 10th, 11th, and 12th may be really service focused and doing, and let's put it in action. Not that you're not going to do that with the young kids, but I think it's just, if you're moving this through in that idea of what I think it makes sense to keep them no more than 2 to 3 grade levels.
And like when we spoke with the student leaders on Monday, we kind of talked about that S&L model, and a lot of it is very young age. And so we asked the student leaders, like, how do we make that more so that it's also for you as well? And we kind of talked about making it more of like the student leaders are going there to be involved, and they're the ones who are running it and being an example to those younger kids. Necessarily, it might not be for them. They might have heard it a lot already, but like to be that, like if we break up into small groups or things like that, just be an example for those younger kids.
Absolutely.
And also inviting. Like that was hugely powerful, and for my kids was being I was invited her to something and she's going.
Yep, for sure.
Seeds believing. You have to belong if we want people to believe.
Yeah.
It's the same thing with a gang. This is horrible, but it's the same thing with the gang. It's the same thing with their friends. It's the same thing why all of a sudden your kids don't believe what you believe anymore, because their belonging has shifted to their peers, and they're like, it's sad, but like that's how we lose our kids, is they feel that they belong more to their peer group, to their boyfriend, to their girlfriend, and then they change what they believe. So that belonging thing is huge. And that's why we want to focus on the discipleship, which is the friendship aspect of them actually feeling that they belong.
And I can tell you right now, I'm a person that sends out a lot of text messages in my life. Like, I hate texting, there's a lot of misspelling, but it's fine. As long as you can hear my voice, it's great. But, like, I can tell a huge difference of events that I text people, and I usually just put Taylor in my text messages when I text to kids because, like, again, you don't do kids in one-on-one, we do group chats. And so, like, what's one thing I'm really excited for with, like, these small groups is that you already have 2 adults in your group chat. So, like, to be personally invited and be like, hey, I'm going to SNL tonight, like, you should be there, you know? Like, also kids forget, parents forget. Like, I send out a monthly email, but, like, it's September 30th, and you're like, wait, what happened on September 1st? Like, I can't believe it's already September, like, 20-something, and I'm like, I feel like it's July. So, like, I think the power of invitation is really important in any type of ministry because you feel known and loved.
If you could also write on that bottom of that piece of paper, maybe like the name of another young adult or an adult that you think would be, like we only have our invitation list that we have for tonight, but because we need to ultimately invite more adults into this and young adults into this if we want this to be successful. And
What's your age for young adults?
18 to 35 would normally be. That's the church's definition.
technically a chaperone is 21, but our goal is to have way more over the 21 so that,
So small group
yes,
could be 18.
yeah.
Yeah, technically.
Now, but like I said, we're not asking that you're perfect, but we're asking that you're striving to be a saint and that like you're living a life that we want teens to be living.
So it has to be 18-year-old, 19-year-olds that are living the faith. Like, I'm just like, you know, inappropriate pictures on. I'm not saying like, but it has to be someone who's living the faith. Like, clearly, don't. Yeah.
It's not even a dumb question, but like youth ministry, is it just the church, or is it like if Emma invited friends like outside of the parish that aren't like Catholic or anything?
That would be the goal. Like that's
that,
the
like,
goal. Well, the
that's
goal
the
is
goal,
actually
small group.
like small group and bigger. Like yes.
You want
yes.
to be reaching the people that don't even know Christ. Like that's
Right,
what,
so that's
yes.
like what we're trying
Yeah.
to.
Yes.
So
Okay.
as it's 8 o'clock, the last thing like I feel like we need to wrap it up is I'll be sending out an email. If you guys want to turn those in now, but I'll be sending out an email to all those who like RSVP'd, kind of with like a recap.
And Olivia's been videotaping the
Yeah,
entire
because I have a couple like headache tonight. So thank you, Olivia.
Her hand is like cramping.
Offer it up for the kids. That's okay. But we're gonna have kind of like if this is something that you think God's calling you to, we're gonna have like another meeting, kind of like expectations of what it means to be a core team member and like the guidelines, code of conduct, all that good stuff, and then we'll also probably invite those like student leaders so that you guys get to meet them and kind of like plan the year in that sense. And if you guys have any, like you said, putting Buddy on that paper if you want to turn that in, circle stuff, you can turn it to me later, or respond to my email I send out, hopefully.
Or you can take a picture of it
Or
when
take
you get home.
pictures. You guys, I'm pretty sure everybody has my phone number here. So
And if you don't,
if you
it's in the
don't,
bulletin.
is it?
Oh, probably. Who reads the bulletin?
Well, okay, so yeah, and like that's another thing, like gifts and talents, guys. I'm bad at social media and bad at like the best communication in that sense. So if you guys are,
Good to see you do it.
maybe you're like not, small groups are like not my thing, but I'm really good at making videos or like emails or bulletin announcements and getting them on time so that they make the bulletin. Yeah, not my skill. So maybe that's something God's. So yeah. Okay, so that's all I got.
I was gonna ask, are we still gonna do like group activities where all the small groups come together? Yeah, it sounds like you are possibly.
Yeah, we actually, so I mean this for like, we paused the whole entire launching a calendar this year because to wait for this meeting, but we had to wait for NCYC, for World Youth Day to end and first, and so, which is like taking their time, but in a really, really good way. So we would look at probably less, like, constant meetings, like sometimes 3 times a week of a youth ministry event happening, but nonetheless, like, we still will have like stuff like that, but just. Okay.
Yeah. Oh, you want to end this in prayer?
I would like to end this in prayer. Can we just, like, I just want to pray. Like, I just want to pray for our young people. Can we also just pray, like, I mean this for real, like, the whole reason that we are founding this coffee shop is for exactly what's happening right now. Is to be just like a catalyst of evangelization, and I mean, like, it's the only reason we're doing this. It's the only reason that we're doing this. Is to just change Dearborn County. And I just want, like, moms to come here and just to love each other and to encourage each other, and I want, you know, like teens to come here and just encourage each other. I want people to come here and read God's word. I want people that are just like need a place to like just come and like get away and be at peace. I want people that are like struggling to come here and to like be welcomed by a warm barista who might be the only person who says hello to them all day that actually cares about them. And I want people that like don't know the Lord at all, that just like come in here and like that's why we're doing this. I really do believe that what we're doing in youth ministry is very much symbolized of like what's happening here. Like, it's a revival, it's a restoration, it's a reconstruction, all for the sake of the gospel, and it's really, really powerful. And I just need to tell you, because I'll probably cry a little bit, like, So like as you all know, we're naming it after ours, after CWNE. And like yesterday, I'm at a meeting to shut down Planned Parenthood in Cincinnati, and it's a very intense meeting, not literally camping intense, but like a very focused meeting. And I'm sitting next to this priest in Cincinnati, and I'm trying to get him to come and say mass at an event that it's top secret, I can't even tell you about it, but I'm trying to get him to come and say mass. And like next week, and he just goes, well, I can't be here next week. I'm like, well, why not? And he just goes, because I'm going to ours. I literally started I literally like cried in front of this person, like, this is so embarrassing. Like literally, like you're going to ours, and like I get so excited. The whole meeting gets completely sidetracked as I can't stop like thinking about the fact that this priest like in 3 days is gonna be in ours. It's so amazing. It's like God is so good, right? And so he's gonna bring back dirt from ours for me. Because like I just emailed him a few minutes ago actually. So it's like it's so good, like God is so good, and it's gonna be amazing. So October 2nd, we're just gonna pray the St. Michael prayer for our young people. We're gonna say a St. Michael prayer for all of our parents in Dearborn County. We're gonna say a St. Michael prayer for all young people that are just struggling with either depression or anxiety or loneliness. We're gonna pray a St. Michael prayer for young people that are on fire with the faith, that the good Lord may protect that faith, protect that flame. We're going to say a St. Michael prayer for all the people who are working on this building, all the people that will be served here and loved here and cared for here in a beautiful way. St. Michael the Archangel, defend us in battle, be our protection against the wickedness and snares of the devil. May God rebuke him, we humbly pray, and your thou prince of the heavenly hosts, by the power of God, cast out hell, Satan, and all evil spirits, who prowl about the world seeking to ruin souls. Amen. In the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen. St. John Vianney. You guys are amazing. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. If you put a chair back, that'd be great. And Molly, your feet is here.